The Jacques Barzun Prize in Cultural History was established in 1993 by a former student of Professor Barzun's. The prize is awarded annually to the author whose book exhibits distinguished work in American or European cultural history. Michael Wood, chair of the prize selection committee, will present this year's award.
The recipient of the 2019 Jacques Barzun Prize in Cultural History is Sarah E. Igo, in recognition of her book, The Known Citizen, A History of Privacy, or Privacy, as some people say, in Modern America, published by Harvard University Press. Professor Igo's book traces what she calls the contentious career of the concept of privacy in the United States. Quote, Americans in the 20th century made of privacy much more than a legal right. They made it foundational to their sense of personhood and national identity. Close quote. The history of privacy, in Sarah's very clear and extended view, the history of privacy involves, among many other things, changes in the law, the development of a social security system, problematic research methods in the social sciences, reality television, and confessional writing. Professor Igo asks not only what has happened to privacy, but also what has happened to citizens' thinking about privacy. And she suggests that to think about privacy is necessarily, therefore, to think about the knowledge of persons. What is this knowledge? Who has it? Who needs it? How much damage can it do? And when should it be hidden or protected? The central focus of this remarkable book is thus, quote, the quandary of the known citizen, hence the title. This is a continuing quandary that suggests that American privacy, far from being in the process of vanishing, as many people think it is, remains in the early stages of what is probably going to be a very long career. Sarah Igo is the Andrew Jackson Professor in American History, Professor of Law, Professor of Political Science, Professor of Sociology, and Director of the American Studies Program at Vanderbilt University. It is my great pleasure to present to her the 2019 Jacques Barzun Prize in Cultural History.
You have to stand next to me.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much, Michael. This is such a wonderful honor. I wanted to say just a couple words. The sociologist Gary Marks recently commented that privacy, like the weather, he suggested, is much discussed, little understood, and not easy to control. As a historian of privacy in the United States, I really became fascinated by how such a tangled and inchoate concept as privacy nonetheless became more and more central to political debates and public life in modern America. If I share anything at all with the remarkable Jacques Barzun, which really seems quite presumptuous, it's an interest in how privacy shifting shape and contours became clearest, not in the headlines and scandals that we're now all rather familiar with, but in the culture of everyday life and practice. And for me, the everyday life of a knowing society was what clarified that long history of debates and contentions around privacy in the United States, how it played out, what it meant, and how the very concept of privacy changed in this society's technologies, its media, its architectural styles and ways of living, its identity documents, its record keeping, its databases, its psychological and behavioral research practices and protocols, its confessional literature, and its social media, as well as its computer databanks. This was a project that took me down many unexpected paths and across many different and unfamiliar disciplines, and so it really is a special honor today to be recognized for this work from the oldest learned society in the United States, the American Philosophical Society. So thank you to the committee, and thank you very much to the society at large.
The Carl Spencer Lashley Award was established in 1957 by a gift from Dr. Lashley, a member of the Society and a distinguished neuroscientist and neuropsychologist. His entire scientific life was spent in the study of behavior and its neural basis. Lashley's famous experiments on the brain mechanisms of learning, memory, and intelligence helped inaugurate the modern era of integrative neuroscience, and the Lashley Award recognizes innovative work that continues exploration in that field. John Dowling, a member of the Lashley Award Selection Committee, will present the award.
The recipient of the 2019 Carl Spencer Lashley Award is Wolfram Schultz, professor of neuroscience at the University of Cambridge. In recognition of his discovery of reward-predicting signals carried by dopamine cells in the midbrain and their critical role in reinforcement learning. Through elegant empirical studies in non-human primates, Wolfram discovered reward-predicting signals that are encoded in the electrical activity of midbrain dopamine neurons. Assessing the reward value of environmental objects, locations, and potential actions is critical to motivated behavior. Schultz showed that the activity of dopamine neurons is not linked to the delivery of reward per se, but rather to the informational value of an award, of a reward, I should say. More formally, dopamine neurons signal reward prediction error, an essential component of value estimation in models of reinforcement learning. Schultz's discoveries inform our understanding of diverse aspects of human behavior and cognition, including habit learning, decision-making, addiction, and neuropsychiatric conditions such as Tourette's syndrome and obsessive-compulsive disorder. On behalf of the Lashley Award Committee, it is my great pleasure to present the Carl Spencer Lashley Award for pioneering work in the field of neuroscience to Dr. Wolfram Schultz.
Well, this is, of course, very nice and very honorable. I like to thank the selection committee for presenting me with this wonderful award, an immense honor. I have checked the website today of the previous recipients, and I have to say that many of my personal heroes have been the previous recipients of that award. And in addition, there are 6 Nobel Prize laureates among them. I'm very humbled, although I have to say we just wanted to have fun in the laboratory when we did the work. So in the next couple of hours, I'll express my thanks to my 50 or so laboratory members for their unfailing imagination, energy, and dedication to our projects. I'd like to thank my postdoc supervisors from a moment ago, Otto Kreutzfeld, John Eccles, Gary Allen, and Urban Ungerstedt for their inspiration and patience. I'd like to thank my 15-year-long head of department in Cambridge, Bill Harris, for his tremendous and never-failing support. I have to say, with our experiments, we need a lot of infrastructure, we need a lot of personal support and administrative support. I'd like to thank the Swiss National Science Foundation and the Wellcome Trust, in particular Candy Hassal at the Wellcome Trust for advice and unfailing grant support.
we're spending a lot of money, I'm sorry to say, and it's not my decision. But my biggest thanks, of course, go to my wife, Gerda, who's somewhere down here, and our 3 offspring, who live in 3 different countries, speaking 3 different languages, for putting up with this absent-minded guy like me. I could not have made it without you. Thank you so much, everybody. We work on brain mechanisms of reward. This reward is a funny thing. Reward does not exist. The reward is made up by the brain. If you remember, you eat your 3rd steak in the evening, the steak is still the same, but it's no longer a reward. You won't eat it, right? There is no such thing as a reward in the outside world. It's your brain that makes an object like a steak a reward. But then, of course, we study how the brain reacts to something, to a reward. So it reacts to something it has made up itself. The Lashley Award is a reward. I'm getting this award for studying reward. So, for me, the Lashley Award is a reward to the power of 2. Thank you very much.
I think that's yours.
The Patrick Sufis Prize was established and funded in 2006 by Patrick Sufis, a member of the Society for 22 years until his death in 2014. The Patrick Sufis Prize honors accomplishments in 3 very different and deeply significant scholarly fields that reflect the spectacular scope of his own interests. The prize rotates each year between philosophy, psychology, and the history of science. Philip Kitcher, a member of the selection committee, will present this year's award.
Before I announce the recipient of the award, I'd like to say a couple of words to echo what Linda Greenhouse has just said about Pat Sufis. Pat's contributions were indeed truly spectacular. They ranged across several fields. Besides his work in philosophy, he was well known for important advances in mathematical logic, the foundations of physics, psychology, the theory of measurement, and the theory of education. A few years ago at Columbia, we had a celebration for Pat, and a friend of mine, an eminent psychologist, came late. He looked around and he asked me, "What are all these philosophers doing here?" I said, "Well, Pat actually got his PhD in philosophy from Columbia." "Oh," said my friend, "I thought he was a pioneering mathematical psychologist." The recipient of this year's Patrick Sufis Prize in the Philosophy of Science is Peter Godfrey Smith, in recognition of his book, Other Minds, The Octopus and the Evolution of Intelligent Life. Other Minds is an accessible and yet extremely original exploration of the philosophical implications of contemporary studies of a remarkable family of animals. Recent work on animal behavior has recognized clear signs of intelligence in various mammals, chimpanzees, dolphins, and elephants, to name just 3, as well as in some birds, notably corvids. Outside these groups, higher cognitive functions seem to be largely absent, with one exception. Octopuses and cuttlefish can do remarkable things. Now, Peter Godfrey Smith doesn't simply report what ethologists have discovered. He has actually helped build the current picture of these animals and their accomplishments. His book draws on many areas of science: paleontology, evolutionary theory, neuroscience, and psychology, and it includes his own observations of the site, Octopolis, that he helped make central to studies of octopus and cuttlefish behavior. Diving was involved. From this empirical material, Peter Godfrey Smith draws implications for the philosophy of biology and our understanding of Darwinian evolution. Furthermore, he transforms standard discussions of non-human animal experience. octopuses and cuttlefish pose a challenge to traditional ways of thinking in philosophical psychology. And so they suggest a need for philosophers, psychologists, and neuroscientists to rethink fundamental categories like perception and action, and to turn away from obsessing over consciousness to focus instead on the more fundamental notion of subjective experience. So Other Minds, a book that you can look at outside, it's on display, fuels new modes of thinking. It's a model of philosophy from science and a book that can inform and entertain readers with different backgrounds. In the view of the committee, this book fully merits the Sufis Prize. We think Pat Sufis would have loved it. Peter Godfrey Smith is a professor in the School of History and Philosophy of Science at the University of Sydney, and it's my great pleasure to present him with the Patrick Sufis Prize in Philosophy of Science.
Well, this is a great honour, and I'm also having a wonderful time at this meeting. I'm so impressed with how everything works here. I thought I would just say a few words about Pat Sufis, who I did overlap with briefly at Stanford. So I turned up at Stanford in 1991, and Pat had just retired. He was emeritus, but only just. And in the first couple of months that I was there, he held a sort of spectacular party at his enormous house. And halfway through this party, his wife at that time, Chris Sufis, asked me to come upstairs with her. She wanted to show me something, and I was puzzled initially and went upstairs with Chris. And what she wanted to show me was a photograph of Pat when he was my age, which was about 26 at that time. And the point of this was, Pat looked fantastic. I mean, he was wearing this beautiful suit. He stood there exuding strength and energy. It was a very dynamic man. And although Chris didn't say this to me explicitly, I thought it was very clear what the point of this display was. She was saying, if you want to be, a young professor with places to go, this is how it's done.
On the occasion of the American Philosophical Society's 250th anniversary, the United States Congress authorized the minting of the Thomas Jefferson Medal, honoring the Society and its third president, my predecessor, Thomas Jefferson, for, quote, devotion to learning. In authorizing the new medal, Congress praised the APS as, quote, the oldest learned society in the United States and one of the principal scholarly and scientific bodies in the world, unquote. The medal is the Society's highest award for the arts, humanities, and social sciences. Now, 25 years later, in commemoration of the Society's 275th anniversary, the APS is honored to award the medal to a person whose life and work are a testament to the power of a, quote, devotion to learning. The recipient of the 2018 Thomas Jefferson Medal for Distinguished Achievement in Social Sciences is Jane Goodall. The citation reads, quote, in recognition of her path-breaking, decades-long research on chimpanzees in Tanzania, her long-term efforts to understand and illuminate the behavior of chimpanzees, including the nature of their family life, emotions, tool use, aggression, and utilization of their environment, and her ongoing commitment to protect those primates. This significant work has been universally acknowledged and rightfully celebrated, unquote. 59 years ago, Jane Goodall took her first steps into the Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania. Without formal training, she took a unique approach to her research, establishing a proximity with the chimpanzees living there to allow her to observe their highly complex society. Her groundbreaking discovery that chimps make and use tools overturned the reigning presumption that tools were uniquely human. Her subsequent notoriety was well-deserved, but she did not rest on her laurels. Rather, she has generously used her fame on behalf of environmental and animal welfare causes. She has lived a life of relentless activism and has led and supported many advocacy organizations. In 1977, she established the Jane Goodall Institute to protect chimpanzees and encourage conservation. In 1991, she founded a global youth program that now encourages and supports service projects in nearly 100 countries. She continues to highlight the needs of local people as central to sustainable conservation. And in 2002, she was named a UN Messenger of Peace. Through her research, she's made invaluable contributions to scientific understanding of some of humanity's closest relatives. Equally as important, her uncovering of the emotional and intellectual capacity of the Gombe chimpanzees provides an enduring example of how science can encourage us to look at nature with humility and empathy. Now in her mid-80s, she continues to have a travel schedule that takes her around the globe, so she will not be here in person. She has provided a video message accepting the Jefferson Medal, which we'll now watch.
I really want to thank the American Philosophical Society for this great honor. For a long time, I've respected the role that the Society has played in disseminating knowledge and the intellectual ideas of people from different aspects of society. And I especially would like to thank the chimpanzees of Gombe, because it was thanks to them, thanks to their biological similarity to ourselves, we share 98.6% of the composition of our DNA with them, but also the observations I was able to make of their behavior and their psychology, so like ours. And it was thanks to this that finally science was persuaded to understand that there was no difference in kind between us and the rest of the animal kingdom, which is what I was taught when I finally got to Cambridge University after 2 years with the chimpanzees. It's not a difference in kind, it's a difference in degree. We are part of and not separate from the rest of the animal kingdom. And we are not the only beings with personalities, minds, and emotions, as I was told. But of course, I learned all this long before I went to Cambridge, long before I studied the chimpanzees from my childhood teacher, who taught me that indeed animals do have personalities, minds, and emotions. And that was my dog, Rusty. So these ideas have really changed the way that we think about our relationship with other animals. We have a long way to go, but thank you, chimpanzees, for helping us understand, and thank you, American Philosophical Society, for giving me this platform to share my understanding about animal behavior as it relates to human behavior. And again, it's a great honor to receive this prize. Thank you so much.
I suppose I have this honor because this is the Jonathan Rhodes Prize, and I'm one of the few people here that he trained in surgery, although he influenced a lot of people with regard to the APS. And in introducing the winner of today's prize, Mina Bissell, I think it's in order to say a little bit about the prize itself. The Jonathan Rhodes Prize for Contributions in Medicine was the idea of Herman Goldstein, a beloved member of the Society, a former executive officer of the Society, and Herman also provided all the money to endow this prize. He specified that it should be the responsibility and that it should be sponsored in turn by 3 institutions that were headed by Dr. Rhodes: the College of Physicians of Philadelphia, the Department of Surgery at the University of Pennsylvania, and the APS. The package, he also specified, was to include a gold medal, which is so large that today's winner will be tipped over by wearing it. The only place you can put it, Mina, is in your sock drawer. Anyway, this award has not gone to surgeons. It's for contributions to medicine in general. And although it has gone to some surgeons like Nobel laureate Joe Murray and Lasker Award winner Tom Starzl, it's to go to medical scientists and practitioners of all aspects of medicine. This year's winner, Mina Bissell, is as deserving or more so than previous winners. Mina Bissell was born in Tehran, Iran, and was educated there through high school, then came to Philadelphia, where she was at Bryn Mawr for 2 years, then moved to Boston, to Radcliffe and Harvard College, where she got her BA, and then went on to get a PhD in bacterial genetics at Harvard. Since 1972, she's been at the Leonard Berkeley National Laboratories. For those of you like me who may find that name a little bit unfamiliar, it's the headquarters and home site of 13 Nobel laureates. And there she has had every leadership role, including the director of the Life Sciences Division, and is now distinguished scientist at the Leonard Berkeley National Laboratories. She's best known for her work in defining the importance of the extracellular matrix of tissues and their microenvironment in regulation of gene expression, function, and especially these things in the context of cancer, and particularly breast cancer. Now, I'm not going to usurp a lot of her time for her lecture by prolonging this introduction, but I absolutely hate it when somebody says there are too many awards to mention. So I'm going to mention just a few of them. There's the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Leonard Berkeley National Laboratories. There's the Ernest Orlando Lawrence Medal, which is the highest honor of the U.S. Department of Energy. There's the Medal of Honor of the American Cancer Society. There's a fellowship in the Royal Society of Chemistry. There's the presidency of the American Society of Cell Biology. There's an honorary doctorate of the Marie and Pierre Curie University in Paris, and many more, which you can find in your program notes. She's a member of the National Academy of Sciences, a member of the American Association of Arts and Sciences, a member of the IOM, of the National Academy of Sciences, and in 2007 was elected to the APS. Her title this afternoon is an intriguing one: Why We Don't Get More Cancer.
All right, so I have to give my thanks to my parents who were able to put up with me. And I'm afraid that they're both passed, and boy, do I miss them. I was fortunate to come from a very educated family. I owe very much to a whole lot of aunts who had degrees from Sorbonne or all sorts of wonderful places, and uncles who were all orators and judges and lawyers. It was a very good childhood. And I am very thankful to have had that opportunity. And every time I think of the millions and millions of kids all over the world who have not had that opportunity. And of course, I want to now thank my current family, my husband, Mina Bissell, who is sitting in front row. And we got acquainted with each other over a centrifuge at microbiology department, fighting which one of us could put the samples in. And that fight has turned into a wonderful, to my mind, of course, no marriage is easy. It takes two to tango, you fight, you do this, that, but we have now been married for 52 years. And thank you. And the funny thing is getting better. It's a real pleasure. And the other pleasures of my life are my wonderful daughter, Yalda Oels, who is sitting back there. She is the author. She has a PhD in psychology. She is the author of a wonderful book, Media Moms and Digital Dads: How to Raise Children Without Fear in the Age of Media. So for those of you who have 5 years up to 40 years, I recommend it, and I'm not being prejudiced. People say to me, it's really a great book. And when she told me that she was writing this book on her thesis in 2 months, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I started crying when I saw the galley, and I said, Yalda, this is really good. And she said, oh, you're telling that to me because you're my mom? Or is it because you really think it's good? And I said, both. All right, and my son, who is also here, and he has a PhD in ecology and evolutionary biology, but he's doing, like Yalda, a lot of good for people. He's the president of I don't know what you call it, but it's a virtual center and also another thing where he does something called Ed Ready, Education Ready. You should look him up in the web. I can't do justice because I also have to give you some science. So I quickly want to say that, of course, if one didn't have the funding, one couldn't do any of these things. But in a very strange way, I only had funding when I was director of the biology at Lawrence Berkeley Lab. And in those days, they would give it to people they thought were smart. And luckily, somebody decided that. And I had some nice funding. And I was in an area where, in a laboratory, in an institution that did not have necessarily tenure. If I were in a Berkeley campus, I am certain I would have not gotten tenure, because I was saying some outrageous things, and outrageous things is tolerated only by people in American Philosophical Society. that later on, but all these people were just wonderful. And I have stayed there all my life because I felt the place has been good. The combination of physicists, chemists, engineers, bioinformaticists, and a lot of biology that was very little biology before I came. And then I became the director of all of biology, and the first human genome was sequenced when I was director at Lawrence Berkeley Lab. And I am very proud to tell you that I was proud of that, but I had to always tell them, that's not the rest of it. Don't think you're going to know absolutely everything. You're not going to know absolutely everything.
A wonderful, wonderful, exciting and lecture about really, truly creative and important work. And I have the honor, on behalf of the Department of Surgery of the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, the College of Physicians of Philadelphia, and of course the American Philosophical Society, to give you the Jonathan E. Rhodes Medal for Distinguished Achievement in Medicine, and it surely deserves.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.